Good. Welcome everyone. A little morning work, a little morning job or two. I guess we should. Guess I should have sharpened some tools before I got started, but we didn't. So we'll do that first. Try to remember to go back away from the grinder. And we have sharp tools ready to go, which is a must, a plus, a must. I would consider it a must myself. It's kind of goofy looking piece of wood. Don't really have much of a flat on there. Somewhere in the center. Still not much of a flat. It's on a worm screw. I always feel better if I put a little bit of tailstock support for now, because it certainly is well out of balance, which will be first order of business to get it back in balance, or get it in balance. This piece gate was given to me by one of the people over at Woodcraft, older gentleman. He gave it to me. He says it's he seems to think it's a burl. Like I said, it was sort of more of a limb grow over, but it might have some interesting grain in there. We will certainly see. First things first is we're going to get it into some sort of semi-round shape. It's rather difficult to actually cut on the bandsaw. Some parts of it would actually be sort of considered a little bit on the dangerous side, maybe, as in the kind that could break blades. As always, on something out of balance, we're going to start out slow, bring our speed up, picking up the vibration. I'm just going to leave it alone for right now because it's got some really big areas that are sticking out. I'm going to attack them first. You got to go slow. This is hard. You notice how long this thing's been sitting around. It's dry. So it's rather hard and rather well out of balance. The other thing, I was turning a bunch of green wood yesterday, and I cleaned everything else up good. Forgot the part of cleaning the tool rest off. When you're doing green wood, everything wants to stick to everything. So my first inkling, cheap candle wax, dollar store candle, or anything laying around. It's the cheaper the better. Then it's more or less just paraffin rather than actual wax. So they're only touching in one, couple little areas. This thing, I'm really thinking this thing might actually get to a round cylinder, maybe some down in here. I think it's going to have a bunch of cracks in down through there, so it may be another kind of science project kind of a thing where I have to possibly have to actually do some epoxy work on it. Kind of hoping not, but according to my ghost image down here, we're getting semi closer. That's still some bark in there, not touched there, there. So we're getting closer. This bark probably needs to go away, would be my guess. Probably should clean up this top face while I'm here. Just using the lower wing, sort of a scraping kind of a cut. The shearing cut, I have a handles way down, so it's actually sort of slicing across there. We need to know where we're going to. We're really still sort of in the exploring phase because we don't necessarily know what's there. We know it has this dark streak, which is, don't know. First thought would be it's bark, but I don't think it really is. So we're almost round, just a tiny bit in the one place. So I'm going to stop right there. I don't want to lose any more diameter than what I need to. So I'm going to bring the tool rest back around to the end here. We're going to work on cleaning some of this up, cleaning some of this off, and see what's actually there. I mean, it looks pretty gnarly now, but we'll see. Once again, we're working on getting it in balance. We've taken some of the out of balance out. We're able to get a couple hundred RPMs. Nice little light cut because there's all kind of little bumpy sticking out. This helps when you tighten the tool rest the whole way. Might not have anything to do with the burl, just kind of brown. Might be disappointing, very much so. And that's what I told the guy that gave it to me. I said, "Wait, you have no idea. Some of these people that deal a lot with the burls have a better idea than what I would. I don't too often get any, so for me to look at something like that and say, well, yeah, it's a burl, and that's what I told him. I said, I don't think it's actually a burl. I think it was just really a limb or a branch or something more in those lines. But we certainly could leave as long as it's semi-solid material. Could leave some of it there. We're getting into white right there already. So it's not, probably definitely not going to be what one would hope for maybe. Because I'm not really seeing any kind of figure at all to it. Just some kind of dried out wood there. And we'll just take some of this corner away. That's about the size of the foot we're going to have on it. At least that's the thought process right now. Might as well mark it while I'm here. Yeah, that's probably going to shrink down a bit. A bit dusty. Probably wouldn't be a bad idea. It wouldn't be a bad idea to have the dust collection on, for sure. Yeah, it's going to be just sort of going to end up being a plain. I mean, it's going to have some dark in it. Got to get rid of some of this. I don't like leaving anything that's cracked up or anything like that. So there's where our foot's going to be. Going to be a lot of starting and stopping on this. Yeah, there's not much. Not going to be much to it. Might as well give my foot a true appearance. That's our foot. A little undercut. Knock the corner off. for right now. And that's where we're going to settle in on that. In all reality, this thing could have actually been, knowing what I know now, probably could have been just two small bowls. And we'll keep on going. Now we know where our foot's going to be, so it rests us a little bit low for that one. So I want it to be a little grabby. Still a couple wormholes in there. Little wormholes I could live with, I guess. I'm thinking of a different shape for it since it's so tall. Little wormholes I can live with. So we could possibly make it into something that looks like a piece of pottery. At least that's my brain thought right at the moment. That way I won't lose so much material. Give it a little bit of a curve. And then just I'd probably just eliminate, that's where the big cracks are anyhow. Big cracks like that I don't want. See if we can get it to go away. Also a little bit of a hint of a pith there, so that wood movement's still going to be there for something like that. I'll make that a little deeper. Get into a bit of a cove. The rest of the fire is going to go away once we flip it around. Still some hints of some little cracks, like little vermin holes. I'll probably just leave them. A lot of people feel that's character. I'm not necessarily the one that feels that that's character, but we'll leave some of it from time to time. We're going to finish out this bottom shape, at least up to here. There, I'm going to go to my scraper for that. It has gunked up pieces of wood on the bottom. Using this on the wet wood yesterday, so it had some leftover juices. It'll get us a nice true shape, at least for the bottom. I think that'll work. I'm not sure I have this penned exactly what I need it to be. Ideally, should be pretty close. If I get it to the perfect circle, or as close to it as possible, then the chuck jaws will not leave any marks in it, which is really what I'm after. Go back to my scraper on the bottom. I say this is hard maple. Traditional scraper will scrape this super clean. Get a little decoration down there just because we can. Just a simple, really just a simple decoration. It's nothing super fancy. This will be the foot that it will sit on when it's done. Yeah, I think I like that so far. No time like the present to give it a quick little sand. It only takes a couple minutes while we're here. It's a whole lot easier to sand it now than it is to come back and sand it at a later date. Put it that way. Not sure the sandpaper is exactly sharp enough to cut, but we're going to find out. Slower speed down. It's going to cut. The wonders of doing things correctly and using the scraper correctly. I was able to start with 150 instead of a 120 or something with coarser. Because I didn't really need to remove any lumps or bumps or anything like that. So I was able to start with a higher grit. Needs a lot less sanding. We will have to sand right down along that tendon area with sheet sandpaper by hand. We could have sanded a little bit of that, but we didn't. We'll get the rest of it by hand. That's straight through to 400. This one should be so fresh sheet paper. I always take my sheet paper and run it over the tool rest or something to break the glue. Break the glue up. It makes the sandpaper much more flexible. So we can get in that tight little corner. I'm using the cut edge. This sandpaper is cut, not torn. So I'm able to get in there with it in there in a real tight corner with that little sharp cut edge. Same as on the out, same as what I power sanded, I will go straight to the grits. Each progressively finer grit will be sanded less time. All we're really truly doing is getting rid of the scratches from the previous grit. And I'm not rubbing my hand over to see whether it's smooth, just kind of being lazy. I should grab my paintbrush, would be a better solution. And use my paintbrush to clean off that area so that we don't leave any, if there's any little bits of the previous grit that stay behind on the surface, when you go to the next finer grit, if it's still there, it's going to put scratches of the previous grit right back in rather than removing them. So it's just a simple little 2-second process that'll save you a whole lot of time and aggravation down the road. At least it does for me. Somebody showed me that trick many years ago, and I'm like, well, it makes sense. Even when I do furniture work anymore, I do the same thing with that. There, I just use the shop vac or dust collection or whatever. When I'm done sanding with the grit, then I vacuum it off. Nothing finer than getting to the part of actually putting some sort of finish on a piece to figure out that you have these scratches that you don't want and you can't see. When I sand by hand, I do go up the extra grit. This is 600. Other thing we could do or should do is try and get the grain lined up and go directly across that center point. Even a little random orbit circle kind of thing in there just eliminates that. Although I may, if I don't have my tenon size right, then I probably will have to come back to it. Let's see who wants to bug me this morning. Wife. The rough life. Instead of doing anything practical at home, we're going to go off with the daughter and granddaughter to Hershey Park. And more power to them, though. Don't like the place myself, but they're going to have fun with it. So now she'll be sending me pictures all day of what she's doing. Lastly, I'm going to go back over that a little bit with the 400. That's it. Just because I sanded up higher to make sure that I don't have anything up there that I didn't want. So that should be good. Ready to turn it around, make some more decisions. it back off the worm screw. Now that's probably going to leave a mark. There's about an 1/8 of an inch gap in there. So it may leave some small marks in there when we're done. But we'll deal with them when we get to it. So we're probably pretty much ready to be directly there, and the camera's not in the right place. There we go. So right off the bat, I'm going to just get rid of all this material here because I don't want it. Easiest way to get rid of it, straight into the side of the tree, cutting across the end grain rather than diving into the end grain. And go the whole way in pretty quick. Okay, that's going to be our top, I think. Maybe not. I think I'm going to drop it down just a wee bit more. There's a little bit, a tiny little bit of character to it, other than the brown. This is where our crack is. This crack comes around the corner the whole way down into there. So that's a good place for a big chunk to fall out or fly out. So I'm going to drop it down. And you got to keep in mind I cut right on that edge, so that becomes a really sharp razor blade in there. So we don't want that, because your hand is always going to be close to that. Contact with it is not very friendly. Still one crack left. My concern is if I try and get rid of that crack, yeah, well, let's do it a different way. Rather than this being a true lip here, this sweep up there, I will go back to, no, to there. There, so you can see a little bit more of what we're doing. This curls up in a way I don't really necessarily want the curling up part. A nice little gentle curve, gentle cut, gentle curve. This way it'll look more like a piece of pottery. Also will make it much, much easier to sand that. I got rid of the cracks. Still have some wormholes, but they're going to stay. That'll work. Now I can go back over to there. The rest of it will be done from this side. Once again, we created a very sharp edge out here, first order of business. Just bottom wing touch. That's all it is, really light, gentle touch. Now we can start removing some material. Being aware that hole is in there. So we do have to be careful of that. Because we could very easily drop in that hole and right across the other side. Just cleaning up that because I was trying to be kind of trying to be lazy. That gouge there is probably getting dull. So let's switch to a new one, sharp one. Wasn't closing the flute the whole way. Also wasn't swinging the handle far enough away from me. So when you don't do that, it wants to skate a little bit instead of sit there and pick up the cut. Got to keep in mind that I'm turning very hard dry wood. Where yesterday and the day before I was turning a bunch of wet wood. Get rid of the rest of that. Means I need to go a little slower, take a little smaller bites. When you're dealing with wet wood, you can be really aggressive and go really fast with it. There's very little resistance. So I leave my steps in the bottom. As I proceed out, I'll leave the steps. Makes life easier. Easier way to pick up the cut without thinking about it. So I need to move my tool rest a bit closer. And there is some streaks across it. I don't think there's enough streaking and enough figuring in it to try and give it some color other than its natural color. I think that's kind of going to be out of the question. Back to the same scenario of I'm going to need more room, a little bit more room in here. I'm going to drop that area down just a bit. This one actually is going to curve back to match this outside curve. At least that's the plan. Keep that material out of the road. paying attention more to the shape than I am anything else right there. So you end up diving into a big chunk of wood, and the whole big wing wants to grab a hold of it, and we can't have that. Just checking to make sure I'm nice and cleanly cut for the top little bit, which we are. Razor blade on that top corner as well. Other thing we could do, switch tool rest to my short tool rest for just a couple minutes, but I can sort of stick it in there. That way I don't have the overhang in that little area. So I can basically work on this one, just this little section to be able to undercut it. Once again, I'm going to remove some material here, and then we'll go back and pick up this cut and try and undercut it to back into that area. We'll get an idea whether we're deep enough. I'm going to say probably not. Definitely didn't cut it as cleanly as I would like. So we'll have to go back and make one more cut. It's probably about, 5/16 thick. So I got to drop down another little bit. Tool handle is way over across there. Be able to pick up and go in there. And you're almost doing it blind, because you literally can't see what you're doing with the chips flying around. So you do have to have the confidence in what you're doing with the tool. You're still going to eventually have to drop that down just a shade bit more. I'm most interested in whether my little digital calipers, as in my fingers, it feels like it's still getting a little bit thicker as it goes down in there, but I'm going to have to remove some material to get rid of, to be able to reach around that corner a little bit further. So we'll go back to our long tool rest. We'll bring it in very close. Give me some support out here. I got to remove that. It's a shame it has figure down the middle. It's not anywhere else. Also, the other problem, as soon as you give that top part of it any bowl or any form, you would make a little bit of an inward curve. The chips stay inside. So we're increasing the depth. Use the back of the tool to touch it. Stuff will fly like crazy. You don't want to reach in there with your fingers. Be a quick way of getting your fingers pinched. And we'll stop to clean them out, because I got to see where I'm going. Because I got to go back in here a little bit and then sweep the curve and remove as much material as I thought I did. we're going to come back over here and pick up somewhere just before that. And what would help this situation too would be to my little light. Little magnetic light. It's just a little LED light. It's going to give me some really bright light in there. It doesn't necessarily cooperate with the cameras as well. I'm going to apologize for that, but it feels like I need to make one tiny little bit of a cut. I have a hump right here. I'm going to make a tiny little cut into that curve, into that corner. That corner is just about where I want it now. So make one little lightweight cut in there, just to get rid of that little lump. And then we'll just proceed on down to the bowl. You curve out and away from it. Back to the middle. And I think what I'm going to do, while I'm thinking of it, is I'm going to go back over to the grinder. I'm going to resharpen both these straight wing gouges. So that's this stuff, definitely with that, whatever, branch grow over or whatever it was, definitely probably left some grit behind, which will knock the edge off of any of the tools rather quickly. These are all Thompson lathe tools. They hold an edge longer than any of the other ones that I've ever tried. Of course, I'm on the East Coast, so I see the Thompson people all the time at any of the symposiums. Not that there isn't good tools made elsewhere. This is a brand that I've used for some probably 17 or 18 years. And really haven't wandered away from it. No matter what tools you use, you have to have sharp tools. Uh-oh, did I bump the camera? I certainly did. My apologies. Didn't realize that. Sorry. So it wasn't necessarily even cutting clean in there because what I go by is feel. When I feel that I have to push a little bit harder on the tool to make it do its work, and it's dull, or at least getting dull. And now there should be no effort. Let's get rid of it. I need to back up here. I do stop quite a bit. I want to feel my shape. I want to feel the thickness. I'm using my fingers as a guide in this case. And we're good right down into that corner. We just need to go a little bit further out to get our shape. Probably could remove a little a little bit more material in the bottom. Nice little gentle small cut. Is dry wood, so want to enjoy the process. So now I'm going to come back up higher, pick up my cut below, behind that other line. Complete my curve, hopefully matching the outside. Once they become a sort of a closed form like this, they are definitely are different to do that way. They're still not thin enough. So I didn't pick up my cut where I wanted to. I left a line in there for one. Still got plenty of thickness. So I'm going to make this right down to that level before I remove any more material in the middle. So I want to leave that center part in as long as I possibly can. And that's how I move my camera. My handle's going to touch it. Bear with me a second. Try and not make you dizzy. Just move it back a couple inches. That feels better. Much smoother transition than what it was. So that's important because we do have to sand that in there, so we don't want it to be super difficult. Okay. I think I'm happy halfway down, maybe. This is the kind of shape that would drive a new to wood turning person absolutely bananas. Because I can't look back here to see what the tool's doing. I have to look down here at 6 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 4 o'clock area. Even when I pick up the cut in there, I'm still looking in the same place. So we're down into there. All we have is very little, the last little bit on the very bottom. Let's see what pictures my wife is sending now. Just give her smiley faces. Somebody else is texting me. So we're getting a fairly good amount of tool overhang. I got a couple choices. Number one, I certainly could just go to a 5/8 gouge, and I still might, but I actually have a big bottom bowl gouge that I can use. It's on a 3/4 inch bar. It can hang over the tool rest, easily hang over the tool rest 4 or 5, 6 inches without any complications, vibrations. I probably will still have to come back up with my smaller gouge. Not really spectacular, not to mention I probably will knock the camera over when I do that. This guy here will go right across the bottom without any issues. That's not enough, but I need to get the chips out of there because we're definitely thick in there. Very thick and, you know, not as thick in the bottom as what I would have thought. I just need to sweep the curve better. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to do it with the long, and I'm gonna have to do sort of the plan B sort of. I'll do it with the smaller gouge down into there, and then we'll just finish out with the big one. Because this thing has like a 28-inch handle on it, so where the camera is sitting at, I'll just knock it over. So a nice light cut. You don't need to take a big heavy cut. In control. We can do, theoretically, we could probably do almost all that anyhow. Once again, we're getting into a much, much tighter radius. Could also use a traditional scraper in there as well. Probably would be almost as easy, maybe even easier. I still got a lot of material here. Feels like I'm pretty thick. You have a gauge for that, so I play around with the fingers. Yes. A solid 1/2 inch thick. Thickens up even more yet. Yeah, so I do have to thin that down a bit. I don't want it to be heavy. I'm not going to try and make it super thin down through there. I just want it cleaner cut than what I got, more so than anything. And I think I might as well just bite the bullet and go with the scraper. It certainly can be done all with the gouge. Get to a point where you kind of chasing your tail a little bit. It will be a traditional scraper. I don't know where we're at on the center. It's got to be pitched downward a little bit. And very light touch. It's out of there, chips. Like I say, the pain of doing something with interior, you see what's left behind. There's just a ton of material, ton of chips. This is a nice hard maple, so well, there's a little place it didn't scrape very well. But one more little pass, lighter pass, will do it right. Everybody likes to interrupt my day. It's my daughter now. Oh, we're at Hershey Park. Can you go let the dogs out? So we'll sweep this curve here a bit more. A little bit of a lump there that I don't really care for. I think that's going to work. I think from there we'll just sand it. I do have some little ridges in here, but I'm not going to. It's a nice flowing curve, little 120 grit sandpaper, which is generally where I would start out on the inside anyhow. That'll take care of that pretty quick and easy like. Kind of would be nice to actually have that little light shining in there while I sand, but nowhere to put it because the tool rack will be out of the road. Okay, so we'll go to 2-inch sandpaper, 2-inch discs, probably by the looks of them, we're just going to get all new ones. Sandpaper is just like our cutting tools. They don't last forever. Sanding with dull sandpaper is just that, sanding with dull sandpaper. It's not going to give you a better finish because dull 220 is not the same as 320 or anything like that. And Vince from Vince's Wooden Wonders, he'll be more than happy to sell you more, which is where I get my sandpaper from. It's going to be a radius pad that I'm going to use. Eliminates me getting it. It'll be easier with these edges that are not not a super curve. Because once again, to get up in this area, just like it was cutting it, it's a little bit harder to sand. This radius edge on this will allow me just to come right up along there, really nice and easy. Just like when we sanded the outside of our bowl, the inside, the coarsest grit will be the most time spent. Because right now we're trying to eliminate any and all. That's interesting. Some of these little streaks in here appear on the inside, almost looks like something that's messed up in the wood, but it's not. So we're making sure we have any and all the tool marks out of the road. We're good with that. Now we can just proceed. And generally speaking, will be less time on each grit. Because all we're doing is removing the scratches from the previous grit. No, forgot about this. This pad will also allow me to sand that radius pretty easily. And it will sort of become the same radius as what the pad is, which is fine. It just needs to be smooth like everything else. Let's take a look at this, especially this area up here. It looked good. Still looks good. So that was 150. I make a small jump right here. I'm going to go to 180. I won't stand real long with the 180. I'm not going to stand real long with any of it really. From here out, we have a smooth surface. We're just refining the scratches. Maybe give this a little round, especially round on the inside. So on to 220. That one's wants to flop around on me a bit. Getting a little bit way out around there. On to 320. If you're watching this and you're not totally bored with what's going on, if you haven't already done so and would do so, it would be nice if you would hit that little red button on there that says subscribe. Help me out to make more, do more of this. So that's 400. That's probably good enough for this. The other thing I like to do before finishing, because we are going to finish this here very directly, is to use a paper towel. Not lose the paper towel in the piece. And it'll wipe out the dust out of the grain. Help to wipe the dust out of the grain. So that we have a nice, super smooth transition. There's a couple little scratches up there. We go a little bit of 600 in a little bit of a random orbit fashion, just to blend those little scratches in. Eliminate them, basically. They would show very quickly in the final piece. The other thing that would probably be a good idea is just to spin it by hand and just ever so slightly knock that sharp edge off of that right there. I'll sand a little bit left in here. For some reason, there is some definite scratches there that I can't seem to get rid of. There we go. A couple little cracks here and there, but we're not going to do anything. We're not going to mess with that. I use a super glue finish on the stuff, so it will go in there and seal those cracks up for me anyhow. Get this finished up and go let the hounds out. I guess unfortunately of these days. I gotta that did leave some marks. Just small little marks in there. I'm gonna switch over to a different chuck so that I can get my jam block to go in. Oh, ooh, huh. That's exciting. That can even go in. I got. I think I'll use a different one for that. Need a way to hold it. Be able to put the finish on the outside. So we use a long sort of jam block. It's got a little rubber on the end. It will go centered in the piece. This one will have to mess around a bit to try and get it as well centered as I possibly can. But I don't. Everything is done except for this little edge up here. This is my same live center. It just has a piece of wood over it with a piece of leather on the end of it, which will give me a fairly good amount of drive if I can get it reasonably centered. I'm not totally super concerned that it's not perfectly centered because all I'm going to do is sand a little bit on this edge because I did leave some marks with the chuck. So we'll sand those marks out. And I will end up re-gripping it anyhow on the same thing. So overhead, I'm not sure what I needed to show. Why does that want to get thrown away? There we go. Okay, so 220. Like I say, it's not going to take much. And it doesn't really matter that it's out of round, because my fingers will bounce up and down with it. So it will just, and there again, when it puts those marks in from the chuck, it's basically sort of squeezing up a little spot, so to speak. So they go away very, very quickly, because as you sand, that's all you're sanding is those little bumps sticking up in the air. You get quite down to the very bottom of it there, but it doesn't take much. Some people would just up and leave that. I don't. Everything has to be finished nicely, as far as I'm concerned. So I will go the whole way back through, right through 400, maybe even a little bit of 600 on this, just so that it's finished properly. Round off that edge. And that'll work. Get a glove. A couple paper towels. What we're going to use is the Parfix 3408, which is a slow setting super glue with a time. It has a 40-second time delay. It's also only 5 centipoids in thickness. Give you an idea of what that's a measurement for liquids. I mean, there's what it is. Other way around. I need to change that camera around, don't I? Yes, I do. What I have in there is a little piece of polyester felt. Just helps to act as a little bit of a reservoir. We're going to rub on a nice liberal coat. This is a maple, so it's not going to soak in a ton anyhow. because it's very close grain, tight grain. I guess would be more of a proper application word. So we're going to soak it. This is where the 40-second time delay is your best friend, because if it was the normal super glue, it would start setting up too quickly. This stuff having the time delay on it allows it to set up slower. This piece might not be quite as dry as I thought it was. Some of this is starting to set up and it shouldn't be. That's also an indication there's still moisture there. Not the end of the world. It's just going to cause me a little bit more work once it cures. So we're wiping off the excess. Yes, there's moisture there. It's starting to set up. My paper towel's dragging on there, so it's starting to set up process rather than sitting there and waiting for me to get to it. But I have to get all the excess off the surface, even though it's setting up a little quicker than I want it to. This piece is going to have to, this piece will require a little bit of sanding after the fact, unfortunately. I probably should have left it sit for a day or two, let any of the excess moisture out. But we didn't. We're going to live with it. Because when this can't soak in, it sits on the surface. Definitely can't bring you in close enough to show it. There's like little beads of almost like a well-waxed vehicle or something like that. There's just little droplets sitting on the surface because it's set up quickly on me. So we might just quit at the outside. Outside's easier to sand than the inside, so I think we're at that point. We're just going to let it go. Come back to it another day. If you didn't know it, super glue does set up in the presence of moisture. Sets up very quickly in the presence of moisture, which is what happened to me there. Should have felt the piece. It probably feels cold, although it really doesn't, but it's mainly that brown area, which is probably holding the moisture. But once that sets up and cures, cure time is 24 hours. That 24 hours is never going to get any harder than what it is. That's when it's going to be totally cured and hard. We got some little bumps and lumps. A little bit of either 600 or 8, generally use 800 grit sandpaper. Those little bumps sand off very quickly. And what I'm after is what soaked into the grain anyhow. And then we'll give it a buff from there. But that's going to be it for me this morning anyhow. This morning, yeah, it's almost lunchtime. I got to go let my daughter's dogs out. So thanks for stopping by. Like I said earlier, if you didn't subscribe, why please do so. Help me out. Um, and I'll try and I am on Instagram and Facebook as well. I will definitely be posting pictures of that once it's complete on there. So check it out. Till next time. My normal stream time is Sunday nights. I do this from time to time during the week, but I'm not consistent at it. Um, so everybody have a good day and stop back Sunday evening. We'll see what kind of mess we can make then.